In the last video, I showed you how you can start using NPM inside of your projects and how it's a real pain to use inside of the browser. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use a bundler, which makes using NPM in the browser so much easier. It also makes working with modules in general much easier because it takes care of all of the bundling of your modules for you. And for us, we're going to be using a bundler called Parcel. If you're a little bit familiar with bundlers, you may have heard of bundlers such as Rollup or Webpack. These bundlers are really powerful, but they're incredibly complex to use, and I don't recommend anyone to use them raw in their normal form where you just have to write out your own Webpack or Rollup configs. That's just incredibly difficult and something that no one should have to do. If you do end up using Webpack or Rollup, for example, I recommend only using it if it's already taken care of and configured for you in something like Create React App. But in our case, since we're not dealing with React, we're not dealing with Create React App, we're going to be using Parcel because it's incredibly easy, quick to use, and does everything you need. This is by far my favorite bundler. And what this bundler does, if we just scroll down a little ways, is you'll see everything here that it does. It's going to have blazing fast bundle times. That's kind of nice to know that it's not going to slow you down, so it'll bundle very quickly. The big thing here is it's going to bundle all your assets, whether it's JavaScript, CSS, HTML, whatever it is, it's going to bundle it all together. And then here, the best part is automatic transforms. You'll see that it's going to automatically transform all of our code, even node modules, into the correct format that our browser can understand. Also, we're going to get hot module replacement. And essentially all that means is that if we make changes in our code, it's going to automatically refresh for us inside of our browser when we're developing, which makes development much easier. And then down here, it just shows a little example of having an index.html. We have a JS file inside of here. We are importing some things in these different JS files. We have some CSS, and it's running all of this together without us configuring anything. And it's compiling it down into one single final minified version. So let me show you how you can get started with Parcel. In here, I just have a simple index.html with our script file, type of module, and also I have our script.js right here. So to get started with Parcel, we need to just do npm init, and we're just going to say -y, give us a default package JSON, and then what we need to do is to install Parcel. And since Parcel is something we only use while we're developing, we don't want to install it into our dependencies because there's two different types of dependencies. There's normal dependencies, which your entire program depends on to run, and then there are dev dependencies. These are dependencies that you need when you're actually developing the site, but when you run the site in production on a live server, you don't actually need these dependencies at all. In Parcel, you don't need to run your site. You just need it to develop your site and to build it so that you can run it somewhere else. So let's do npm I Parcel bundler. And if we were just to hit enter here, this is going to install this as a normal dependency. But we want this to be a development dependency. So if we just come in here and put --save-dev, this is going to install this as a development dependency instead. If we click enter, it's going to start running. And the reason we're installing Parcel like this is that way, if someone else comes along and tries to use our application, it's going to install this development dependency for them if they just run npm install from their package JSON, and then they're automatically going to be set up with Parcel and able to use it. And now this process may take a while because Parcel is pretty large, so I'm going to come back to you when this is done installing. Okay, we finally finished installing Parcel, and you'll notice down here we have these dev dependencies, which is different than normal dependencies, and it has the Parcel bundler in here. And again, don't worry about the version. This really doesn't matter. Now, if we go into our node modules, you'll notice that this is a much larger folder because Parcel depends on a lot of other node modules, a lot of other packages, which is why they're all installed alongside Parcel. So now that we have Parcel up and running, let's just write some code that uses modules like we would normally expect to. For example, in here, we can just create another file called user.js. And I can say, export, we'll just do const Sally equals name Sally. We'll just export this. We're going to export const Kyle, which has a name of Kyle. Let's just put this on another line. And then finally, we're going to export default function print user name. It's going to take in a user. And it's just going to console.log their name. Okay, there we go. This is some code that we need to import inside of script.js. So inside of here, we can just say import print user name from, and in here, we can just say /user.js. We also want to import Sally and Kyle. And now let's come down here and say print user name of Kyle and print user name of Sally. Now, if we save this, you can see it prints out Kyle and it prints out Sally. Okay, that works as we expect it to. So now how do we go about using this with Parcel instead? First thing I want to do is I want to stop live server. I can just click down here to stop it. That'll mean that when I save things, our server is not going to refresh over here. We're no longer connected with live server at all. And what I want to do instead is hook this up with Parcel. Well, inside of our package.json, we have this section called scripts. And scripts are essentially sets of code that you can run through NPM. And all you do is give it a name here. And this is JSON, so we need to put this inside of quotes. We'll say start, and then we give it a command. And this command will just say parcel, and we're going to say index.html. And what this does is it runs parcel on our index.html file. So all it's doing is taking index.html and trying to bundle everything up for us. And since we're doing bundling, we're no longer dealing with modules, so we can get rid of this type equals module here. Let's just put defer on here to be sure that this is going to defer. And now that we have this start script set up, down here we can run npm start. And this start script is kind of special. It's a special case where you can run npm start and it's going to run whatever script is called start inside of this scripts object. Now if I hit enter, you're going to see that it's running parcel index.html. It's starting up a server for us and it says in 1.32 seconds it built this for us. And if we open this up here, control click to follow this link, you can see it's opened up this browser window here. And if I inspect this and I go over to the console, you'll notice it still prints out Kyle and it prints out Sally. That's really cool. So you'll notice in our index.html, we'd have no references to module anywhere, but we're using modules and it's still working inside of our browser. So how exactly is that happening? Well, you'll notice there's this cache folder here and this dist folder. This cache folder is essentially Parcel's own internal cache of everything that it's storing for all of these different builds. If ever you have a weird error with Parcel, I recommend just deleting the cache and deleting this dist folder. That should clear it up for you. But inside dist, you'll notice we have an HTML file, we have a script.js, and we have a script.js.map. So what exactly do all these do? Well, let's first look at our index.html, because this is pretty much the same as our original index.html. It just changed out our script source here to one that's called script. A bunch of letters and numbers .js, and we have defer on here still. So this is essentially the same as our HTML file here. It just gave us a new script file with these weird numbers in the middle. Then if we look at this script file, you'll notice it has a bunch of extra code inside of it. And all of this code is just allowing us to support these different weird module related information. So if we scroll, you can see it's taking our modules and converting them out of their module format. As you can see with all of this crazy code, all that's doing is just combining all of our code into one thing instead of using modules. This code also takes care of all of that hot reloading and cache stuff. As you can see, we have this cached and cache.hot. You don't have to understand what this code means. I definitely don't understand what it all means, but essentially it takes care of all the hot reloading for us. So if inside of script.js, we got rid of this Kyle here and just saved, you're going to notice it automatically reruns our server. It rebuilt this file and everything just refreshed for us automatically, which is super nice. Now, the other thing that Parcel does, other than just doing all this bundling for you in development, which is really not that useful when you're already using modules and bundling on your own, it also allows you to build a site, and it's going to take all your files and convert them over to a way that works with all the browsers, even if they don't support modules. To do this, we just need to write another script inside of here. In this script, we're just going to call build. You can call it anything you want, it really doesn't matter. But inside of here, we just write the code parcel, build, and then the name of our file, which in our case is index.html. Now, in order to run a script with npm, let's just exit out of this real quick. All you do is run npm, then you type the word run, and then the name of the script, in our case, build. And like I said, start is a special case where you don't need the run keyword, because if you just write npm start, it'll run whatever script is called start. But in our case, since this is not called start, we need to write npm run, and then the name of the script, which is build. If we hit enter, what this is going to do is it's going to run parcel build index.html, and it's going to create us some interesting files inside of our index, or inside of our dist folder here. As you can see, we have script with the 6bbfdb45.js, we have the map, as well as index.html. And if we open these files up, you're going to notice something interesting about them. As you can see, this is super convoluted code. Almost all the spacing is removed, all the extra information is removed. And the reason for this is that Parcel, since we're building for production, that's what build says. It says we're building for production. It takes our code and it minifies it, which means it takes it and makes it as small as humanly possible. That way, when you download this file, it's going to be much smaller because it got rid of all the extra spaces, got rid of all the extra characters that you don't need. And if we looked at one of our script files, you can notice again, all the spacing is removed. All the characters are reduced to pretty much one letter characters. And as you can see, just in general, this code is really pretty much impossible to understand and read. But by doing so, by making all of these changes of making variables really short, function names really short, and just getting rid of all of the spaces, we're reducing the amount of information that we send over the server from our server to the browser, which means that people can download this quicker because the file is actually smaller. There's less words, less characters, less spaces, so the file itself is smaller and downloads faster. This is where these dot maps come in. What these dot maps do is they allow you to actually translate this crazy complicated code right here into your more common and easy to understand code here. It's essentially a mapping between the two. So if we have an error inside of our code, for example, if I just wrote in here a bunch of random characters, this is going to throw an error because this doesn't actually exist inside of our code. What this is going to do, this mapping, is it allows us to map from here over to our different errors. So let's just start up our server again by running npm start. And let's just make sure we open this up. Over here, click inspect. That's going to pull it up. We can go to our console. And you can see we get uncaught reference error, blah, 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 is not defined at. And you can see this stack trace is really not that useful. But you'll notice it has this script.js 3 here. We can click on this, and it's going to bring us directly to where this error is inside of our code. And this is because of these source maps. As you can see, it says the error occurs here on line 116 inside this weird file. And if we click this, it's going to bring us over to here. If I just make this a little bit larger, you can see this error really doesn't make any sense. Like, this is not our code. And you can see it says source map detected. So it's saying that we have a source map instead that we should use. So that is why over here, when you click this script.js 3, it's bringing you to the source mapped version instead of using this crazy version here that's not actually the source map. And again, all this allows you to do is take your code from this really complex version that is being created by the bundler, and it's just allowing you to map back to your own code so that way you can still see where the errors are, even though the code being sent to the browser is actually different. It's this code right here, but our error is occurring here, so it's allowing us to see where these errors occur. It makes debugging much easier. These source maps are super useful. Really, you don't have to understand how these source maps work. Just know that they're really useful because it makes it so you can debug just like before as if you weren't using a bundler at all. Okay, now let's fix this code up. Let's just get rid of this console on the side. Let's open up the console we had before, just so we have it to look at. As you can see, everything's working as we would expect. Now, the next thing that we can do is actually look at how these bundlers make working with Node modules so much easier. I'm just going to open up a new terminal tab here. I'm just going to install that UUID library. So we'll say npm I UUID, and inside of our package.json, we should see a new dependency show up for UUID. And there we go, we have our new dependency. Now inside of here, I just want to import v4 from, and I want to get it from UUID. And then let's come down here, and we're going to say console.log v4 as a function. And if I save, boom, it worked. Just like magic, just like as if we were doing this inside of Node. The bundler said, okay, you want UUID? I'm going to check inside Node modules. And it found UUID inside the Node modules. And it said, okay, I'm going to get the information for you from it. It said, oh, you want the v4? I'll give you v4. It did all of that for you. And if we look at where this is saved, if we come over here, you can see it's saved inside of our script files, which is this 74D whatever. Inside of here, we have our code for UUID being bundled up inside of here. And it actually just took the library and pasted it in here. All this crazy code in here is all, here's v1, we have v4 somewhere in here. It just pasted that inside of this, bundled it all up into one JavaScript file so it could serve and be super quick that way. So the biggest benefits of these bundlers is that number one, they make working with Node modules and just modules in general so much easier inside of the browser. Number two, they allow you to use the build version of this in order to build out a production-ready version of your site, which is going to be minified, which means it condenses all of your code into the smallest amount of space possible. That way it is going to be downloaded as quick as possible. It also takes all your different modules, it combines them together into one, so you don't have to worry about all these different module stuff and the differences between module and no module. All that is taken care of for you. On top of all the minification module benefits and node module benefits, you also get something called dead code removal. Essentially, it's going to look through your code and it's going to say, you know what, you're not using this Kyle anywhere. And inside of here, you're not using Kyle anywhere at all because it's being imported here but not actually used. So it's going to cut out all the code that's dead, essentially code that's not used. So it's going to remove that for you automatically, which is super useful. Also, you can use this parcel with CSS and other things like that. In our case, we're just using it with JavaScript, but you can really use it for an entire application from the HTML, CSS, JavaScript. It does not matter. Now in the next video, we're going to take all of the knowledge that we've learned about modulars, bundlers, and really everything else in this course and build a larger project, which is going to be a date picker. So I can't wait to see you in that video.